Hi everyone, it's Patricia Warby here from Alchemy Therapies and My Emotional Audit and all the other things that I'm currently involved with. And today I'm delighted to introduce to you my new pal. Hi Drew, this is Drew Mulvey, who describes herself as an integrative sports health practitioner, but she specializes in disordered eating with athletes, which sounds like an amazing thing to do. And my first question to you, Drew, is what brought you into this arena? How did you get involved?
So really, most of my life, I was kind of not able to be like a normal human being, especially in my teens. I had lack of energy. I just was getting sick a lot. And here I was an athlete my whole entire life. I did a slew of sports when I was younger, and then finally decided to really hone in on diving. And that was my favorite sport. But at that time, it was about 14 that I was finally diagnosed with IBS, depression, insomnia, anger. I mean, I had all of these different things, but even at that point, like I still kept getting sick. What really was the trigger was when I was a freshman in college. I was a very serious diver. For America, Division 1 is like kind of like the highest that you can be in for sports. Is very competitive. And during that time, from a lot of the trauma I had faced when I was younger, which I'll talk about a little later, I developed an eating disorder. I was overtrained, and the combination of the two, it just set off all these different health conditions, which actually later that year, A, I was let off the team because of all these things, and B, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, adrenal burnout, candida, another autoimmune condition that was my natural killer cells were attacking themselves. And so I had to take a medical leave. I had to get immunoglobulin shots every week. I had to get IV nutrients twice a week. So basically, for all the doctors that I was going to telling me nothing was wrong, I finally found that there was so much that was wrong with me. And that's where I really found the power of alternative care and alternative healing. But there were so many other modalities that I didn't understand. I think it was when I was really like 24, that's when I realized, I don't want to be a politician. I don't want to be a vet anymore. And I lost my job as in a biology lab. And I realized, okay, well, what do I want to do? Where are my strengths? And that's when I came to pursuing a master's in human nutrition and functional medicine nutrition, really, really honing in on alternative care. And it's amazing that you go into a program and you're like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with this. And you get healed in the process and you realize what you're kind of like your calling is after. And so my mission from there, when I experienced alternative care, I felt so much better. I just didn't have a lot of the tools to really kind of cement it. And I was still in my disordered eating patterns. I developed binge eating disorder later in my 20s. I had all these gastrointestinal symptoms, still all of these different things, and
Mm.
still a bunch of different traumatic experiences that were just kind of throwing me off the edge.
Mm.
So, with that, with all of those things, and now where I am now, that I've been able to recover my athletic career, I am healthier now in my 30s than I was in my 20s. And I want this for everybody. I want this really for those female athletes. Basically, I wish that I had me when I was 19 to be able to walk through all of those different things that I went through.
It's a lonely journey, isn't it? I
Yeah.
think. And because I think conventional medicine says they don't really know what's causing it, they just give you a series of labels, and the labels increase and increase and increase. Certainly, that was my experience. Very like you, I had a bit of an epiphany a little bit later than you, probably in my mid 30s, actually, um, where I had actually I did a lot of lab work. I worked in a very famous London hospital for a while, and I was pursuing a science career, and I'm still very passionate about it. But I'd kind of been made redundant a few times, and I was like, where to go, what to do with this, and I ended up doing, I was self-employed for a while, and then I got sick. And then I started to, a bit like you, really reap, I guess, the effects of my past. You know, what had happened to me was still in my body, and it was encouraging my body to not rest and repair, but to break down. And I guess it's similar to you. And I'm not an athlete, no way, not me. That's not my thing. But, you know, I pushed myself pretty hard. You know, I was an A-type. You know, my thing was work, you know, work, work, work. You know, that was my focus. And, you know, I would work really long days. Being self-employed, you tend to really focus. So I can really resonate with what you're saying there. And the fear of not getting well, you know, what are you going to do? But thank goodness you found nutrition, and you found, as you say, alternative care. I think, you know, the whole, God, I don't even know what to say about it. The integrative approach, the natural medicine approach, is so illuminating. It was like when I discovered that, my whole world shifted.
Mhm.
So, you know, why do you think you were so interested in pursuing that? Was it just because, you know, you hadn't quite found the answer to your disordered eating issues, or what kind of propelled you onwards to where you are now?
My quality of life just sucked.
Right. Yeah, that's an honest.
Honestly, to put it blatantly, my quality of life just sucked. You know, I mean, I had so many faulty mindsets that had been carried on from my younger years. I had just traumas with diving, you know, just a culmination of things, and then not even knowing why I'm sick and why I'm keeping getting sick.
Mm.
And, you know, to be in that area where you're questioning, is there something wrong with me?
Mhm.
And then people seeing you as making excuses, you wonder, okay, well, um, you get in a very, it's like a no-win situation. And so with that healing, there's not only the physical healing from the alternative care, but also addressing things mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And actually, what was a really pivotal time in my life was 24. I actually became born again, and I found faith. And faith has really helped me immensely. Kind of showing me a purpose for my life, showing me who I am, kind of pouring into me what I didn't have the first 24 years of my life. And that self-worth, I had no self-respect, no self-esteem. I was constantly trying to get attention from other people, and it was just constantly rejected.
Mm.
So when I found that healing, and then through that process that I realized this is who I am, and getting a master's in nutrition and realizing, oh my gosh, that's where my giftings and passions and talents were my whole entire life. And now the hell that I walked through, I'm going to be able to get somebody out of it quicker because of what I've been through. And I have just experienced so much more freedom. I've experienced, I mean, the fact that I got my athletic ability back. I didn't think that I'd even be able to do what I was doing this year. And it's absolutely amazing. I didn't think I was going to be able to hold a full-time position because I was so sick all the time.
Mm.
So that's what made me really interested in maybe digging a little bit deeper and taking the integrative approach, taking the physical approach, the emotional approach, the mental approach, the spiritual approach.
Mm.
And from that, it's just blossomed in my life. Um,
Mm.
I think with that also is with those disordered eating patterns, they've really broken for the most part. You know, they say that sometimes during rough times they come back, but you kind of start to identify your triggers and you have the tools to kind of get out of it quicker. Most of my 20s I was plagued by that, but it was those characteristics that were playing the role in that, the mindsets that I had, the traumas that I didn't deal with, the things that I believed about myself. And once I started to address those, then things got a lot easier. Once I started to kind of accept certain things about myself, things were getting a lot better. And that's what made me really interested in healing, because I'm really passionate not only about people having longevity in their athletic careers, but really having their quality of life given back to them, because life can be so beautiful and we forget that. And we're just so on, you were so hyper focused on autopilot, we miss so many of those beautiful things around us. And that's why I'm so interested in healing, because really in this world, it's too fast paced. I believe it's too fast paced, and we're not really stopping and kind of smelling the flowers.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say most people are in a busyness addiction, you know, and don't spend time with the little things that give us joy. We're it's so competitive with each other, and this idea of, you know, we've got to achieve certain goals in life, um, and it creates a huge amount of stress in the body, and particularly if you've got past emotional trauma that's sitting in the background driving the chronic stress response. And so I love it that you said about quality of life. I mean, I do a lot of podcasting. I'm talking always about bringing the joy back in, you know. Healing is a very interesting word. It has the same root as wholeness. You know, it's making yourself whole. And if we can find ways to do that, whether it's psychological, mental, spiritual, physical, you know, we have to integrate all of those aspects of ourselves. So it's not just about, you know, fixing the problem, is it? It's about the root cause is biopsychosocial. It's everything embedded in you, because the body is a real-time readout of your beliefs, of your attitude, of the things you think on a habitual basis. And I know from my experience before, my belief system, although on the surface very positive, because I'm very driven and I'm very go-getting and I'm very A-type, underneath, if you were to really strip that away, what was underneath was, I'm not like other people. I'll never make it. Doesn't matter what I do, I'll always fail. You know, I definitely had a pessimistic undertone, very well masked. You would never know it was there, but it was definitely there. And it kind of forced me into this double bind of overworking, but underappreciating life and myself, and not trusting. So thank you for raising that really important point of, you know, quality of life is so much more than just how much you can achieve, isn't it? um you know, as high achieving people, I know you are and I am, it's just like, well, yeah, it's good, but are you happy? Are you in a place where you care about yourself and you're loving of yourself, you know? That's really my focus, is to bring back self-love and self-care and into the everyday experience, you know. So I hope you don't mind me asking a little bit about your past. I mean, you don't have to go into detail, but if you'd like to give me a rough rundown, because I know there are many people watching here who may wonder, you know, what kind of background predisposes you to these eating disorders or anxiety producing long-term chronic health conditions. So if you wouldn't mind giving me a rough, you know, quick snapshot of what happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, well, first of all, I felt for a long time in my life that I was fighting for my father's approval.
Okay.
And, that can be a trigger. But I think also in elementary school, I was a little bit heavier set than everybody. And I went through puberty first. And really, I became the target for everyone. And it was to the point where my parents actually almost took me out of school because it was so bad. And the sad thing is that the teachers enabled their the behavior that they had, and I was the one that was getting in trouble for standing up for myself. So here, you can just, from that alone, you can just imagine what that put into my mind, especially, what is it, after 7 years old, first 1 to 7, that really, that basically sets the tone for many years in your life. And so putting those mindsets that nobody's going to fend for me, I have to look a certain way, I'm not going to get this, I'm not going to receive, love from people. And so I had to battle with those things. And later on, there was several different rejections. I tried to find that attention from the opposite sex because I really wasn't getting that too much from my father. And I have to say, thank God that I did have diving and I did have sports, because that was my outlet. But I also had trauma from coaches, because I was just tired all the time. I didn't know why I was feeling the way that I was. and they were saying I was making excuses. They were threatening me. They were overtraining me. I just, I had actually, when I had, after I was bulimic in my freshman year in college, later that year, there was a new coach, and I was basically told that I was a cancer to the team and I wasn't worth being poured into. So just all of those things. And then another trauma that came from a diving coach. I think one of the biggest takeaway from all that is that I relapsed after that second trauma with the diving coach at the other place, because I had left my first choice school and I had started to see I was relapsing when these traumatic events started happening. I continued with just several disordered eating patterns because I never really was able to have a stable relationship. I was an angry person. I was a miserable person. I was just depressed. I didn't know if things were going to get any better. And really, I think a big turning point was probably 4 years ago when I was at my darkest and I really lost everything. I had graduated. I thought I was going to do well in my career. My internship started going downhill. My job started going downhill. My practice started going downhill. And I just kind of thought that I was a mistake and I really wasn't worthy of even, living anymore. But then when I snapped out of it, and, thank God for the people that were around me in my church and lifting me up and keeping me going, I learned a lot from that period. And I changed a lot of things and I was recovering a lot of things. And then 2 years ago, I entered into an emotionally abusive relationship and I didn't realize the red flags. And now I'm still recovering from that, from even just the things that were said to me, but also physically too. So that's where finally I got it. I realized, wow, every time there's a trauma, my body reacts to it. So yeah, well, from the young, what happened to me when I was younger, that just set off so many body image issues and self-loathing and not respecting myself, not thinking I was worthy, and not thinking, not even feeling worthy of eating, and actually enjoying my meals. And I feel like I've found like such a good balance with that now that I can just be me and it's okay to be me. But yeah, it's amazing what happens to you when you're younger, that it can set you up for all these different things, and you allowing people to do that to you too. So that's a little bit of history of
Brilliant.
the trauma.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting for you to have put that across, because many people think of trauma as like massive events that, I don't know, you were in a bomb explosion, or you were in a war zone, or you were, you had this massive accident, but actually it's this drip feed of messages that you receive perhaps from your earliest years. Usually, as you say, 0 to 7 is a very crucial time. And the messages you downloaded as truth, that you had to prove your worth. I think that's one of yours. And if you couldn't achieve, then who are you? You're worthless.
Yeah.
You're chasing approval from someone who isn't able to give it to you reliably. So you learn that you are unworthy of love and support and happiness. So I think that's the basis of a lot of depression. It's certainly the basis of a lot of anxiety and anxiety related disorders, of which disordered eating is just a strategy to try and cope with the anxiety, isn't it? And the way to kind of bury the feelings, I believe. And many other drivers, but that's at its core. I think that's what's going on. And so the self-loathing, I had an experience with that when I came to my healing journey, and thought I would experiment with self-love, because I'd read in all the self-love development literature that you had to sort of pay attention and say nice things to yourself, and realized I couldn't really say I loved who I was. I loved what I'd achieved, but that's not the same thing. At a deep fundamental level, I didn't have that self-worth. I thought I was faulty, broken. There was something about me that didn't quite work. It didn't quite fit. I would often say to friends, you know, oh, I know I'm really different, and I know I'm really quirky, and I'm a bit strange, and all those things, because they were kind of the way I interpreted what had happened to me. Like you, I was bullied. I was ginger. What can you say? You know, at school here, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but ginger kids were really, really ridiculed, and it was like you were um, just outside the main group. Didn't matter what you did, how friendly you were to other people, you were just not included in things. And so, you know, it's just one of those weird things that you grow up with, and you can't change it. It's like the way you are, isn't it? So how can you change that? But I was always aware of being different, and I don't even think about it now as an adult. I really don't. And but as a kid, I was acutely aware that I didn't fit. And yeah, I used to be bullied in the playground and all sorts of things. So it's a classic trauma story, isn't it? And here we are as adults, able to take responsibility and change that, and come into a new alignment with who we are, and maybe learn the lessons. I loved what you said. You didn't put it quite in these words, but taking the gifts, if you like, of what happened to you, and transforming it into the work that you now do with other people. You pay it forward. You're gifting other people what you learned that you wish you'd had. You can be there. Are your clients mostly, they must be mostly athletes, but are they mostly women? Is it a mixture? Is it young, older people? What's the sort of range of people you work with?
It's been a mixture of people, really. I've had some male clients, I've had some female clients. Some of them are, recreational athletes. Some of them are a little bit more serious than that. But now I think I'm trying to hone in more on like the young adults and the youth, because that's a target population that if you can get them at that age, then it really kind of prevents the things from
Escalating, yeah.
escalating
Yeah.
and getting to a point where, 40 in your 40s or 50s, things start to manifest. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I could have done with you. Could have done with you at the time. There was nobody really offering this viewpoint. Integrative medicine, when I got sick, are we talking 15 years ago? There wasn't such an awareness. There weren't all these online, conferences, and, there wasn't the awareness that there was another way. It was just you took the pills or you did nothing. And I decided to take the pills, and I took the pills, and they just made me really sick and didn't really help me. And then that's when I stepped into the alternative arena, and very much to my surprise, I went down to the kind of Chinese medicine route initially, and then I discovered energy work, and then it was just like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Why was I never taught any of this at university? Because I did several degrees and never covered any of this stuff. So it's really been amazing to come into alignment with the reality of who we are as human beings, and see that we're not just physical, that the physical is a manifestation of the energetic, and the energy is part and parcel of what you inherited, what you downloaded. There's so much going on, isn't there, to create the experience we're having in the here and now. So I mean, I think you're an inspiration. I love that you work with young people, because that's really the beginning of their life is ahead of them. They've got a possibility that maybe older people haven't. But having said that, I work with a range, and I never say you're never too old to get your life fixed. But it's a wonderful thing to inspire a young person who's maybe feeling hopeless. You know, to say, actually, I've been where you are, and I understand that you feel desperate, but there is an answer, and I can help you. It's such a wonderful thing to be doing. So I'd love to hear what you think might be coming down the pipeline. What's the future of this kind of integrative care, and how do you see it developing?
yeah. Well, interestingly enough, I don't know if do you have Netflix out there? You
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
do.
yeah. We're in we're in the Western world.
Okay. So I've always been, I shouldn't say always, but really for the past few years, I've been hearing more about the blue zones, and I've been very interested in that. And basically, the blue zones have the highest population of centenarians.
Yeah.
And so there is a documentary on Netflix, and what he was doing, obviously going to the blue zones, but trying to take the principles which they were applying to their lives, and he wants to integrate it more into the United States. I would love to do that too. And a lot of the things that they were encompassing was whole food nutrition, gardening, tilling the land, having purpose in life, having faith, having community, having joy.
Mhm.
And when I was thinking about it, we are so just off the charts, stressed out.
Mm.
And in the United States, Ian even said to me, it seems like everybody in the United States, they're getting certificate after doctorate or whatever and degree. And it's true. It's very true. And we don't really sit back enough and integrate these very simple principles. And this is what I want to bring to the athletes as well, so that they have the best sort of training program, bring to the coaches so that they know how to train their athletes properly, so that they have proper rest and recovery. They're using food in a way that's fueling their body, and it's also emotional enjoyment as well. They have a good relationship with their teammates, that everybody's encouraging each other, that there's a spiritual component like faith, and just a good community, and a good way to kind of integrate exercise the way that your body likes it. And that's the way I wished I was coached, because then I wouldn't have been overtrained. I obviously, there's some athletes that do make excuses, but it's the ones that are driven that don't make the excuses. So that's what I'm seeing for the future, is really taking this preventative model and using alternative care testing to really see what's going on, looking at the heart of the matter,
Mhm.
looking at their, I don't even want to say personality traits. I'll put it that way. Personality traits, their
Yeah.
mindsets, what's going on in their life, their sleep, their hydration, their exercise, their nutrition, addressing all of these different areas. And then one of the areas that I've been very fascinated with is genetics. And there's a big thing with epigenetics and nutrigenomics now,
Mhm.
and how your environment really affects your cells and really affects your genes, because that's going to be really important to honestly treating everybody as a snowflake, because protocols fail. One of the things that also
Mhm.
led me to this is I always joked I was a medical anomaly. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me.
Mm.
And it seemed like, oh, so I'm on like the other end of the bell curve, where there's like, only like 3 participants that happened to instead of at the top of the bell curve. Um, so that's how I'm seeing like the approach for even changing training programs for athletes, teaching them about what food actually does to their bodies, to their hormones in particular, how that can create longevity, but in an emotional connection with the food,
Mhm.
having an emotional connection with others. That's what I was seeing in that documentary. And I've said it to people, is that connection. When
Yeah.
there's a lack of connection, everything is just chaos and disorder. And it has to start with the connection with yourself first.
Yeah. God. Oh, there's so much I could take from that. I don't know where to start. Um, Working backwards, I'd say heart-based connection with yourself is the beginning of everything. And it enables you to connect well with others. And I think community and, as you say, a spiritual component to healing is a really important one. And it's the one that's often missed. I mean, spiritual people don't tend to sort of look at their health generally, and healthy people don't tend to look at their spirit. That's at least what I've observed. It's God will provide. Well, not if you feed yourself junk, you know. It's like, so I think combining those two things, and maybe putting together the whole idea of a spiritual journey. And we're not necessarily talking about a belief in God. I want to be careful, because there will be people listening here who don't have a faith in that way, but a belief in something bigger and more intelligent than us, that kind of is, you know, the intelligence of the universe, if you like, that's bringing this to us, and we are part of, and that we're part of this unfolding and learning how to be better human beings and how to take our part in nature. You know, I'm very keen on developing the idea of every crisis has a spiritual component, you know, so learning how to do that better. The other thing you raised, which I wanted to pick up on, was that not everyone is the same. And so protocols, or, you know, straightforward interventions that say, right, we treat everybody the same way, whether it's in training or in nutrition, it misses out a vital component, which is not just the personality differences, but the biochemical individuality of that person. And that you were an outlier, you were at the extreme of the bell curve. And I think many of the people that I work with are too. You know, they're hypersensitized to things, whether it's supplements or foods or environmental changes. I had a client yesterday who can detect the change in the moon phase. You know, the minute the moon goes into a waxing phase, she's fine. The waning, where it goes from full moon to new moon, she just feels the shift. It's like, who talks about this stuff? But highly sensitive people, of which I have an inkling you are, and I know I am. We are at the outlying, you know, the extreme end of the bell curve, and we do respond in different ways. And we have to respect that when we're working with people, is that not everyone is going to respond to the same interventions in the same way. And so I think creating a harmonic of healing is about bringing in the different factors, but attuning them to that person. I mean, that's certainly how I work. You know, I don't have a rigid protocol. I tell everybody at the beginning, you know, this is going to be a journey we'll undertake together. Who knows where we'll end up? I know where we're going to start, but I never know where we're going to end up or how we're going to get there. It's down to what comes up for that person, and I will intuit that and kind of hopefully guide them in the right direction. It sounds like you're going to be doing the same with the people that work with you. So fundamentally, you know, this field that we're both in, although we have different expressions of it, is a right brain activity. It's a heart-based activity. It's like, it's creative, isn't it? It's not rigid. It's not about doing things the old way and hoping for the best. It's about moving us forwards in a way that's loving and compassionate for the human experience. Now, I want to ask, just finally, how can people get hold of you if they want to explore this with you, whether they're athletic, you know, professionally or amateur? How might they contact you, Drew?
Oh, yeah. So I have a website. It's redeeminglifenutrition.com. And then on the front page, you can sign up for a 15-minute icebreaker call with me. I'm also on Instagram under whole.fit.athlete.nutritionist. I have a YouTube channel, Redeeming Life Nutrition. I do have a Facebook group as well. Is there another one? You can find me on LinkedIn as well.
But all the social media. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my website basically has all my contact information. So my email is in there, my phone number, so you can get a hold of me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to take part, and it's been a joy. I mean, we met recently, so it's not like we've known each other for years, and so it's always a bit of a gamble when you say, let's have a conversation. You don't know how it's going to go, but I kind of feel, I felt from the beginning, I felt like, oh, and I feel that you and I work in a similar way, although not identically. We have a similar maybe approach to life, and maybe our past has impacted us, you know, highly emotional people, but working for the greater good. So I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you do what you do. And I hope, you know, and I pray that you're going to affect the lives of many, many people for the better. So thank you so much, Drew. And take care, everyone. If you like what you've heard today, please subscribe. Take care.